Get out now. Vivian Hart's voice cut through the low hum of cutlery and soft conversation like a blade. The restaurant fell silent as she loomed over Marcus Ellison, folding a napkin into a precise rectangle as if preparing armor. Do you know what kind of place this is? Her stare was contempt, boiled to venom. Marcus stayed seated on the polished marble floor, one hand gathering the small clink of coins scattered between his knees. He looked up, steady, as if he were measuring the temperature of the room then begging for its mercy. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I paid for my meal." Vivian laughed, a high, brittle sound that sliced through the silence. "Paid with what, Marcus?" "Monopoly money." She scooped a handful of coins from the table and flung them at his chest like a cruel punctuation mark. "Keep the rest. Take it and leave." The coins struck his sweater and rolled across the marble floor, spinning before coming to rest beside his knees. Round them, 12 heads turned. Forks hung mid-air. Phones quietly rose, small red recording lights flickering to life. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" The martyr D pressed his lips so tight they went white. Even the sizzling from the open kitchen seemed to pause. Marcus's fingers moved with deliberate calm. He picked up one coin at a time, the metallic clicks echoing like heartbeats in the heavy air. His dark eyes reflected both humiliation and unbroken strength. He could feel the weight of 100 stares pressing on his back, but his hands didn't tremble. He had seen worse. He had endured worse. 8 minutes until Vivian's partnership pitch. 8 minutes before she was supposed to stand before a room of investors and talk about professionalism, leadership, and grace. Yet here she was, towering above a man she deemed unworthy. Drunk on her own authority, the room trembled with that peculiar silence that follows cruelty. The kind that makes every observer question their own morality. Would someone step in? Would anyone speak? Or would the city once again watch a man be reduced to a curiosity? A soft clatter broke the moment. A spoon dropped from a trembling hand. The influencer seated by the window, a woman with perfectly curled hair and a gold phone case, had already gone live. "Y'all won't believe what's happening right now," she whispered into the camera, angling it toward the scene. "Is Meridian Grill downtown? Look at this. Just look." The viewer count on her stream began to rise. Marcus straightened slightly, meeting Vivian's eyes. "People are watching, ma'am," he said quietly. Vivian's lip curled. "Let them." She turned sharply, her heels clicking against the marble, and marched toward the bar, her posture stiff and righteous. But the damage had already been done. The air around her felt poisoned by her own words. Marcus gathered the last coin, brushed the dust from his palm, and stood slowly. Every eye followed him. The influencer's voice trembled with excitement. The Mater D approached timidly, whispering, "Sir, perhaps we can?" Marcus raised a hand. "No need, I'm leaving." He glanced once more at Vivian's. Back then at the diner's frozen mid-meal. If he could have shouted, he could have wept. But instead, he simply said, "You learn a lot about people when money hits the floor." And with that, he walked toward the door, slow, calm, unbroken. Before we continue the story, tell us in the comments from which country you're watching this and what time it is right now where you are. We'd love to know our viewers. From around the world, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Emotional, real, and unforgettable. Marcus pushed open the glass door, stepping into the sunlight. The sound of the door closing echoed behind him like the final note of a sad symphony. Inside, whispers began to spread. Some people looked away in guilt. Others typed furiously, their captions already forming. Outside, Marcus took a deep breath, coins clutched loosely in his hand. The city carried on as usual, unaware that a storm had just begun. The door closed behind Marcus with a soft thud. But inside the restaurant, the silence lingered like a stubborn ghost. No one moved for several seconds. Then the whispers began, quiet, nervous, scandalized. Vivian Hart straightened her blazer, forcing her heartbeat to slow. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, but she refused to meet them. The influencer near the window was still filming, mouthing dramatic commentary, as if narrating a movie. Vivian turned sharply toward the bar and muttered to the bartender, "Delete that video or I'll have your job." But it was already too late. The moment she'd thrown those coins, that flick of her wrist had been captured from 3 different angles. The internet would take care of the rest. Outside, Marcus walked toward the corner cafe across the street. His reflection in the glass door looked tired, not because of age, but from carrying too much disappointment for too long. He ordered a black coffee, paid in coins, and sat by the window, watching the elegant restaurant across the road. He wasn't homeless, he wasn't poor. In fact, 2 hours later, he was supposed to be in a meeting with city investors, a presentation about a new youth program he'd built to help underprivileged kids learn technology. But now, that thought felt almost ironic. He smiled faintly. "Guess dignity's the only currency people don't recognize anymore," he murmured. The waitress brought his coffee with a kind smile. "I saw what happened," she said softly. "That woman's awful. You didn't deserve that." Marcus nodded gently. Sometimes life lets people reveal who they really are. "I just wish it didn't have to happen in public." He pulled out a worn folder from his bag. Presentation notes, graphs, photos of smiling students from his community center. His hands trembled slightly as he rearranged the pages. He had built his entire life around patience, respect, and calm. Today, someone had mistaken those traits for weakness. Across the street, Vivian sat alone in her office upstairs, trying to focus on her upcoming pitch. But the scene replayed in her mind, his calm eyes, the quietness of his movements, the way the room turned against her without saying a word. Her assistant entered with trembling hands. "Ma'am? The clip's online? It's everywhere." Vivian's stomach dropped. "What do you mean everywhere?" "TikTok, Instagram, even the news blogs. People are tagging the restaurant and you." Vivian's throat went dry. The partnership pitch she'd been preparing for months was now drowning under a wave of angry comments. Meanwhile, Marcus's phone buzzed on the cafe table. A friend had sent him a link. "Man humiliated in high-end restaurant. Watch how." He reacts. He sighed and set the phone down. He didn't need to watch it. He'd lived it. For the first time that day, Marcus felt the weight of the city's gaze and realized his quiet dignity had just become the loudest story on the internet. By evening, the city was buzzing. What had started as a lunch hour argument in an upscale restaurant had turned into a full-blown digital wildfire. The video, 37 seconds long, opened with Vivian's voice, sharp and venomous. "Paid? With what, Marcus?" "Monopoly money." Then came the clatter of coins, the faint gasps of diners. And finally, Marcus's calm reply, "People are watching, ma'am." That one sentence became the internet's anthem. Within hours, hashtags flooded every platform. Hashtag Marcus Ellison, hashtag dignity over gold, hashtag restaurant rage. Some people condemned Vivian instantly. Others debated whether the clip had missing context. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. Marcus's composure under humiliation was powerful at his small apartment that night. Marcus sat in the dim light of his laptop screen, scrolling through comments. Thousands of strangers were defending him. Messages of support filled his inbox, some from people who had faced similar discrimination. Others simply moved by his restraint. "Brother, the way you stayed calm, that's strength. I hope you get the respect you deserve. Can we donate to your youth project? It's community center's donation page, long forgotten." Suddenly crashed from the traffic. Meanwhile, across town, Vivian Hart's world was collapsing in real time. Her phone rang nonstop. Journalists, business partners, PR agents, even old friends who suddenly wanted to help. Her face was everywhere, frozen mid-yell, one hand pointing down, anger carved into every pixel. Memes spread faster than any press release could stop them. The woman who threw coins became the headline that erased her entire career in hospitality. In her office, Vivian stared at her computer screen as angry emails poured in from investors. This behavior does not reflect our company values. The board has decided to postpone your partnership pitch indefinitely. Her assistant entered hesitantly. Ma'am, they're calling for a boycott. Vivian's jaw tightened. Of the restaurant. Of you, for the first time. Vivian felt what Marcus must have felt, exposed, judged, powerless against a tide she couldn't control. The internet didn't just record what happened, it rewrote reputations in real time. Marcus, on the other hand, had no intention of fighting back. He ignored interview requests and declined offers from talk shows. I don't want fame, he told his friend Jordan over the phone. I just want peace. Jordan chuckled. Too late for that, my man. You've become a symbol. By midnight, donations for Marcus's youth tech program crossed $50,000. News channels began calling him the man who chose dignity. He closed his laptop and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He hadn't spoken to Vivian since that moment in the restaurant. Yet her face, angry, trembling, fearful, replayed in his mind. Maybe it wasn't about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about what came next. Outside his window, the city lights flickered like restless fireflies. Oh. The storm had begun online, but its echo was about to reach both their lives in ways neither could imagine. Asterisk 3 days had passed since the incident. Yet the world refused to move on. Every news channel, podcast, social feed had an opinion about Vivian Hart and Marcus Ellison. Vivian barely left her penthouse. The curtains stayed drawn, her phone silenced, her reflection on the black TV screen haunting her like a stranger. The woman staring back wasn't the powerful entrepreneur. She had spent years crafting. She was the villain of a story she never thought she'd be part of. Sleep wouldn't come. Whenever she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus kneeling on the marble floor. Collecting money she had thrown, her anger echoing through the elegant hall while others watched in disgust. On the fourth morning, she stood before the mirror and whispered, I need to fix this. Her PR team had begged her to stay silent. Let it cool down, they advised. An apology now will only fuel it. But silence felt heavier than shame, so she ignored their calls, picked up her car keys, and drove to the community center, the very one Marcus had built from his savings and faith. The place was modest, tucked between old brick buildings, with laughter and chatter echoing from inside. Children were drawing on whiteboards, volunteers carried boxes of donated computers, and sunlight spilled through dusty windows. When Marcus saw her at the doorway, he froze. The room fell silent. Every face turned toward her. The woman from the video, Vivian swallowed hard. Akus, she said softly, can we talk? He looked at her for a long moment before nodding toward the empty classroom beside them. The door clicked shut behind them. For a moment, neither spoke. She clutched, her handbag like a shield. He leaned against a desk, calm but unreadable. I came to say I'm sorry, she began, voice trembling. I was angry, arrogant. I spoke to you like you were less than me. I can't take that back, but I can. Marcus raised a hand gently. You don't have to explain. I know what people do when they're hurt inside. Her eyes flickered. With confusion, you think I was hurt? He nodded. People don't throw words or money unless they're trying to prove something to themselves. The truth stung. She looked away, tears threatening. You have no idea what it's like to build everything from nothing and then lose control in front of the world. Marcus smiled faintly. You're wrong. That's exactly what I know. Silence. It hung thick, heavy with realization. She took a deep breath. I've been reading every message, every headline. They're calling me names I never imagined. I deserve it, I guess. But I don't want your forgiveness for the internet. I want it for me. Marcus studied her face, stripped of arrogance, makeup faintly smudged, voice stripped of its usual sharpness. For the first time, she looked human. You don't need my forgiveness, he said quietly. Need to forgive yourself. A tear slipped down her cheek. And what about you? They turned you into a symbol. Doesn't that bother you? He chuckled softly. It used to. But I realized people weren't cheering for me. They were cheering for the part of themselves that wants to stay calm when the world humiliates them. She exhaled shakily, relief mixed with guilt. You're a better person than me, Marcus. Looked at her not with pity, but with understanding. No, Vivian, just a person who's been there before. When she finally stepped out of the classroom, the children were smiling at her. One little girl handed her a crayon drawing, two people shaking hands. Vivian smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you." That night, she released a handwritten apology online. No PR filters, no polished statement. Just raw words. 2. Marcus Ellison, I'm sorry. To everyone who watched, learn from my failure. Power means nothing without respect. The internet for once softened. Comments flooded in, not all forgiving, but many moved. And for Marcus and Vivian, that single meeting became the moment when shame transformed into strength, when enemies became witnesses to each other's humanity. The storm hadn't ended, but the healing had begun. Weeks passed, and the storm that had once devoured Vivian Hart's name began to fade into memory. The internet had moved on to its next scandal, as it always did. But something within her had changed permanently. She no longer woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing with hate. She no longer hid behind the tinted glass of her car, avoiding the world's eyes. Instead, she had started volunteering twice a week at Marcus's community center. Not because she wanted the world to see, but because, for the first time in years, she wanted to see herself doing something that mattered. The first time she returned, she brought boxes of ingredients from her restaurant, fresh produce, bread, and canned goods. For your meal drives, she told Marcus. He only smiled and nodded. There were no grand speeches, no reporters. Just quiet understanding between two people who had both seen the worst and decided to choose better. The children loved her instantly. They called her Miss V and showed her how to play their games. One girl handed her a handmade card that read, "Everyone deserves a second chance." Vivian held it for a long time, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Meanwhile, Marcus's community center started receiving more donations than ever. People who had once watched the viral video were now sending supplies, food, and even volunteering. Ironically, what began as a public humiliation had become a bridge connecting hearts that once stood divided. One Saturday afternoon, Vivian found Marcus repainting a wall. She picked up a roller and joined him. "I used to think success was about being seen," she said, dipping her brush in the white paint. "Now I realize it's about seeing others." Marcus smiled. "That's the kind of success the world can't take away." They painted in silence for a while, the rhythmic swipes of the brushes filling the air. It was a small, ordinary moment, yet more meaningful than any business deal Vivian had ever made. Later that day, she recorded a short message in the same restaurant where it all began. The chairs were empty, the lighting warm, and her voice calm. 3 weeks ago, I made a mistake, one I'll never forget. But I've learned that sometimes being broken is what teaches us how to rebuild stronger. If you've ever judged someone too quickly, hurt someone out of pride, or stayed silent when you should have spoken, this story is for you, 'cause it's never too late to change. She ended the video with a gentle smile. Oh, and if you're watching this right now, I want to know, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far this story of forgiveness can travel. And if you believe the world still has kindness left in it, make sure to subscribe so we can spread a little more light together. The video went viral again. This time, not for cruelty. Spread because people felt hope. Because in a world addicted to outrage, a single act of forgiveness felt revolutionary. And somewhere in the quiet corner of that same restaurant, now renamed Grace and Grit, to people who once stood on opposite sides of anger, shared a simple meal. Together, not as enemies, not as symbols, but as proof that kindness can rewrite any story. Even the coldest hearts can change. Even the harshest mistakes can lead to light if we're brave enough to face them. Tell us in the comments, what does forgiveness mean to you? Don't forget to share this story with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe for more emotional, life-changing stories every week.